Welcome back to Fantasy Sports News and World Report. I'm Brian Lyles. Again, I felt like, after you saw the Shante Usual interview, I thought it was, you know what? I wouldn't mind interviewing another Fantasy Sports World Gold. So, again, and especially this time of year, it's spring. So I bring a nice springtime favorite, Miss Michelle Vessels. Hello.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, hello. Miss Michelle Vessels, you have done a lot of things. I was looking at your list of accomplishments, and I feel like, you know what, it's best to let you explain it. Pretty much, tell us a little bit about yourself.
We specialize in independent films. And then within this umbrella, we also have product placement that we do for independent films to help them raise monies. And in addition to that, I'm an associate broker with a real estate firm here in the city.
Okay. Now, how long have you been, just to start off, how long have you been doing the media, film and media?
I've been in the media industry for 15 plus years.
Wow.
I started with Radio 1.
Okay.
No, actually with WPGC.
Oh, okay.
And then Radio 1, and then I branched off with my own company.
Okay. Now, your years in Radio 1, I mean, especially with PGC, you knew Donnie Simpson and
Absolutely.
And all them.
All friends. All friends.
What was it like, especially that time frame, working with them?
Oh my goodness. They're all just the super cool people. And being, I'm a behind the scenes person. I was in sales. So I was events marketing director, local sales manager, as well as senior account manager. So I wore a lot of hats at WPGC, but I got to know all of these people very well. Chigger, Michelle Wright, Donnie Simpson, some of the older names, Albie D, Dakota, Paco. I mean, just Paco, the Hispanic cause of panic. names from over the years. But, the radio business is a fascinating industry.
So how you went from radio into video? How did that transition go?
Well, it's a long story.
Granted.
Granted, we don't have all that time. But I'm a writer, right? And I've been writing since 9th grade. And my love for film came from screenwriting. So I'm also a screenwriter. I have 2 features that I'm working on this year for myself. And I work with Russ Parr as a mentor, Russ Parr with WKYS, because as you know, Russ, you may not know, but Russ Parr is working on his 5th feature, and it's going to be filmed here in DC.
Okay, cool.
So, just the whole, so I've been writing for a long time, and what better person to produce my own work than myself, because I'm capable of raising funds for my own feature films.
Okay. Now, also, you mentioned about being a real estate associate. How did you get into that?
Real estate?
Yeah.
That's a long story, too. Back in I worked for WJCW for a short stint, and they came out and there was a huge buyout, and it left me unemployed for 4 days. And at that point, I had a client that was in real estate, and he says, "Well, Michelle, why don't you get into real estate?" And it was kind of transition between 2 radio stations. And I said, okay. So I took the real estate licensing class, and it became history after that. I'm kind of a well-known broker in Prince George's County.
Okay.
So it's kind of history.
So granted, your media thing, the real estate, granted, we've had talks before, and it feels like you're up really late at night, and I'm surprised you're still awake. After going through all these things you're doing, do you feel that all these jobs you're doing is too much on a toll for you, or?
Not at all. Not at all, because everything from real estate to film and media, everything's second nature for me. I know you and I have been on Facebook sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're like, "You're still up?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm still up." But that is the best time for me to write. And the phone's not ringing. I can clear my head and think about everything that has transpired, because I write about the things about my experiences and other people's experiences, and so that is the best time for me to write. So I'm up late at night when everybody else is asleep.
Well, but then again, usually by the time, you know, I wake up and if I'm on Facebook, I see your nice comments.
Oh, so you're getting up at that time?
No, pretty much I'm still up or I'm, you know, if I'm up long enough, you know, I'll always, you know, see your unique comments. So granted, if you
never a dull moment on my Facebook page.
Getting back to the real estate, I read an article on you on, I believe it was the Washington, the Express, I believe.
Washington Times?
Washington Times, that was it. Washington Times about the housing market, and everyone knows about the whole ordeal we've been through the last few years. Yes. What is its current status? You know, because granted, for a lot of people who's still thinking about buying a home now, is it okay or is it not?
The real estate, it's a slow recovery. And yes, the real estate market is okay. Now's a perfect time to buy. Now, I never completely understood why, at the heat of the housing market, all of the investors jumped in. I guess because they were doing what everyone else was doing. But for investors, to first-time home buyers, to anyone just looking to purchase a home, you buy it at this particular time. You buy when supply is high and demand is low. Right. I mean, that's when you get the best rates, as opposed to paying, you know, above market for a house and competing with 12 offers. You know, but now people aren't buying. I don't get it.
Is it due to the fact that people are still afraid, or is it due to the fact that the homes are overpriced? I mean, even where I live, I'm seeing 2.3, 2.5, nearly $3 million homes, and really they should be only costing like maybe $100,000.
It's unfortunate that some sellers are still living in a fantasy world, but it's up to their realtor to educate them on the home selling process, because if your home is overpriced, I mean, it's not going to appraise first and foremost, and then secondly, you know, if it's overpriced, it's going to sit on the market.
Okay, well,
but it's a good time to buy.
Good time to buy.
To answer your question.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. Speaking of homes, I also read the fact that you're originally from New Orleans.
I am.
Okay, now I'm going to take you back a few years and then lead you into last year. A few years ago, we had Katrina, and that devastated that entire city. First off, how did you feel? And where were granted, everyone would say, "Oh, where were you when this happened?" So, where were you when Katrina hit, and how did you feel?
I'm here in Washington, but all my family members were affected. My mother, my grandparents, and my grandfather and my grandmother were actually at the Superdome when Katrina hit. My grandfather, you know, being the man that he is, didn't want to leave his house. And after hearing that Katrina had, you know, was now a Category 4 hurricane, we're thinking, oh, my goodness, this is serious, because, you know, in New Orleans, if it was, you know, Hurricane 1, I mean, Category 1, 2, 3, I mean, we stayed home. But 4, no, that was serious business. So my grandfather said, oh, no, I'm going to stay in my home and I'm going to board it up, and but after hearing that it was a Category 4, we convinced him to at least go to the Superdome. And he can go back home if it's not that serious. And as we all found out, that it was really, really serious. So he spent 5 days in a Superdome. The only number he had in his wallet was my business card, and because he didn't even know my number by heart. Okay. And you know, so he gave some police officer my business card and asked the police officer to give me a call and let me know that they were okay, because all forms of communication to New Orleans was cut. Right. So it was, you know, and they put him on a bus and they sent him to Houston, and another family member flew down to Houston, that's from Washington, flew down to Houston to pick he and my grandmother up and bring him back to Washington, and then they stayed with me for 9 months before relocating to New Iberia. So it was devastating, and my mother still hasn't gone back.
Okay. Well, after that tragedy, there was a bright moment, and we've chatted on Facebook about you being a big football fan and you loving the Saints and
Who dat?
Yes, yes, the queen of the Who dats.
Yes.
And how did you feel when the Saints won the Super Bowl last year?
It was the city needed it for morale, and it was a very uplifting moment for everybody involved. You know, with the Gulf spill, with Hurricane Katrina. You know, we'd been waiting for this for a long time. And Tom Benson, the owner of the Saints, you know, he's always preached, you know, excellence on the field and off the field. So the Saints were very, very huge in in community service. So to see them, you know, win the Super Bowl, and Drew Brees, you know, he was not always put in a category with all of these. You know, he had to prove himself that the whole year. And even up until the time that we went to the Super Bowl, I go, the Saints aren't going to win. The Saints aren't going to win. And, you know, I'm a believer, you know, and the whole time on Facebook and all the Who Dat Nation, we're like, oh, they're going to win, they're going to win. And I'm a believer. And I said, we're going to take the Super Bowl home. And we did. And Drew Brees came out as the MVP. And now they, you know, in the face of the New Orleans Saints, and they look at him in the category now with, you know, Peyton Manning and, you know, that
Tom Brady.
Yeah, and Peyton Manning is a New Orleans native.
Right.
So yes, and Tom Brady. So it's exciting. So I'm glad they've got that under their belt. This year wasn't so exciting, but it's okay.
I had them. I don't know if you saw the show, but I had them going to the Super Bowl.
You did.
I did.
Well, good for you.
Yes,
despite what you say to me on Facebook,
yes.
right?
But anyway, you're quickly going back to your movies and your movie involvement. I mean, you told me, mentioned the fact that you got involved in Transformers 3, and granted, we can't give away a lot of secrets, but how was that experience?
You know, it was phenomenal just to see everybody in action being on the set, as well as, you know, I was on the set with Russ Parr's 35 and Ticking in Los Angeles, and it's just a very different experience, very different than being in the studio today. But I love being in the studio, and the film business, just soaking up everything and watching everybody in action. And I was actually invited there by one of the cameramen, so I'm behind the camera watching all the scenes and the way they're putting them together, and so it was a good experience.
Okay, is there something that you can say to somebody who, I mean, you granted you have a lot of hats, but somehow you're still fulfilling your dream? What would you say to somebody who wants to be doing what you're doing?
Surround yourself with people that encourage, motivate, and will support your dreams, because, you know, I've got to be willing to go to areas that I'm uncomfortable in, you know, because if I just continue to do what I'm doing, I'll continue to get what I'm getting. So, you know, all of the people that surround me, including yourself, are encouraging and supportive, and, you know, it's all about surrounding yourself with those people as opposed to those people that want to steal your dreams and tell you, you can't do that, you can't do that. So my job is to change the face of the things that I'm doing. And there's nothing that I can't do. That's what I love.
That's good. That's good to know. Michelle, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Brian.
And I hope to see you again.
Absolutely. Every day, all day.
Oh, yes. You can learn more about Miss Michelle Vessels on her personal website, which links up to her real estate business. And in addition to, I believe, your website again for the media?
www.royalextreme.com.
Okay. Again, thank you to Ulysses and Will Let's Talk. And, of course, Miss Michelle Vessels, our Fantasy World Goal for Spring 2011. We will see you next time on Fantasy Sports News and World Report. See you.